How do you get tens of thousands of construction workers, people who absolutely do not want to be tracked, to voluntarily carry a GPS device on them every single day? You don't. Not directly. You build something they actually want to use, and you let the tracking happen in the background without them thinking about it and without them caring. One guy figured this out. He was a carpenter, then a superintendent, then a project manager, and then he built what I'm going to call a Trojan horse, an app that construction workers genuinely love using, that just so happens to know exactly where they are every minute of every day. And what's even more exciting is the company that built it just got acquired. Here's why. Let me paint you a picture. You're a superintendent on a large commercial project. You've got 15, maybe 20 different trades on site, hundreds of workers across dozens of floors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, fire protection, you name it. And your job, one of your many jobs, is to know where all of these people are. How many plumbers are actually on level 5 today? Are the drywallers in the right units? Is the MEP crew even on site, or did they get pulled to another job? And do you know how most people figure this out? They walk around, they count heads physically with their eyes.
And instead of counting heads, it was my role as a super, counting how many plumbers we have, how many electricians we have, how many drivers we have, and what the heck are they doing? I realized we have to find a way to do it in scale.
That's Erez Dror. He spent nearly 2 decades on construction sites, carpenter, assistant superintendent, project manager, and for years his version of workforce data was walking floor to floor, writing numbers on a clipboard. Now, there have been solutions that have tried to fix this. Wearable tags, Bluetooth badges, sensors strapped to hard hats, and they all run into the exact same wall.
The only feedback I got was, it's really, really hard to force workers to wear a tag and look like their location. Which makes sense. Nobody likes being tracked, especially if they get nothing in return.
Think about it. You're asking a plumber to clip a sensor to their hard hat so that their boss's boss can see they spent 47 minutes on level 3 instead of level 5. What's in it for them? Nothing. It's like asking your teenager to wear a GPS ankle bracelet. You can try, but all I can say is good luck. So every wearable-based solution in construction has the same adoption problem. You could build the most sophisticated tracking system in the world, but if nobody wants to wear the thing, you've got nothing. And this is where Erez did something I'm going to say is genuinely clever. He flipped the entire problem on its head. Instead of building a tracking tool that workers tolerate, he built a tool that workers want, and the tracking just comes along for the ride. Think of it like this. If you wanted to know how often someone visits a particular shop, you wouldn't strap a tracker to their ankle. You'd copy what the big supermarket players do. You give them a loyalty card with discounts. They scan it because they want the discount, and you get the location data as a byproduct. Same information, completely different relationship. No ankle bracelets. That's what Erez built. Except instead of a loyalty card, it's an app. And instead of discounts, it solves about a dozen problems that construction workers deal with every single day. He calls it a super app. I'm calling it a Trojan horse. The idea is that by giving workers something genuinely useful, something that makes their day easier, they engage with the app willingly. And because they're engaging with it, the app can passively collect the data that the project team actually needs. So, what does this app actually do? Let me walk you through it. Erez and his team, the company is called Genda. They spent years on construction sites studying what workers actually need to do every day. Not what managers want them to do, what workers themselves need to do.
So we have this super app that is basically unifying 12-point solutions. This app allows them to access control, like open the turnstile. It allows them to call the bar hoist that you mentioned earlier. It allows them to onboard into the project for their safety orientation or sign their daily safety paperwork, like daily job hazard analysis or permits or such. It allows them to speak in a chat. It allows them to get notification alert.
So just to break that down, you're a plumber arriving on site on a Monday morning. You open the app to badge through the turnstile. You check what floor the hoist is on and call it. You fill in your safety paperwork, which you have to do anyway. This app just makes it faster. And you get an alert that there's a concrete pour on level 12. So avoid that area. All of that stuff is stuff you'd be doing regardless. Genda just made it in one app instead of 12 separate processes, half of which was still on paper. And here's the key bit. By engaging with any one of those features, even just opening the turnstile in the morning, you're counted in for the day, attributed to your trade and your company. The system now knows One plumber from XYZ Mechanical is on site. But it goes further than headcount. They embedded Bluetooth sensors into the building. And by embedded, literally embedded the sensors. They poured them into the concrete and fixed them into the structure. Tiny, tiny devices similar to an AirTag. As a worker walks past one of these sensors with the app running on their phone, which they're already using to do their daily tasks, the app picks up that sensor and logs their location, unit by unit, floor by floor. So now, without asking anyone to wear anything, without installing big infrastructure, without changing anyone's behavior, the system knows that there are 14 plumbers on level 5. 8 of them have been in units 501 to 515 for the last 3 hours, and 6 of them moved to level 7 after lunch. And nobody had to do anything extra to make that happen.
So by doing that, we were able to get very, very high adoption. The Genda worker app. So Genda has a worker app and a manager app. The worker app is how we get the data. It is used, 5 days a week by our users, like tens of thousands of users in worker. So the engagement is very, very high, especially for a B2B product in a market that people would never buy.
Tens of thousands daily. In construction, an industry where the running joke is that people still fax things. And trust me, they do. I just received a quote for glazing on my house on a fax that was then scanned to me and sent to me by WhatsApp. How backwards is that? This all took Genda 3 years to crack. 3 years of iterating on what workers actually need and want before the adoption flywheel started spinning. But once it did, the data set became incredibly valuable. And this is where the story gets bigger. Because on its own, knowing where workers are is useful. But it doesn't answer the most important question. What did they actually build? So you had 14 plumbers on level 5 for 6 hours. Great. But did they finish the first bit of work? Did they do 80% of it? Did they spend 2 of those hours waiting for materials? Workforce data alone cannot answer that. So there's another company, Buildots, that does something different. They use 360-degree cameras. Someone walks the site, puts a camera on top of their hard hat, they capture the video, and AI compares that footage against the design information to figure out exactly what's been built, element by element. This wall is done, that ceiling is 60% complete, the fire stopping on level 3 hasn't started, etc, etc, etc. So together, Buildots knows what was built. Genda knows by who and how long it took. Put those two together, and suddenly you're not just saying drywall was behind schedule, you're saying drywall was behind because the crew only had 60% of planned headcount, and the workers who were there spent 15% of their time in the corridor waiting for the hoist, instead of in the units installing what they should have been. That's a completely different conversation. It's the difference between knowing your football team lost 2-0 versus knowing your striker was only in the box for 6 minutes the entire match. One tells you the score. The other tells you why you lost, but more importantly, what to change for next week.
Having that data set on one job is powerful, but having that data set across jobs is game-changing. Imagine that you can say for each one of your trade partners, how fast do they do it? What is the workforce that is there? Do they have specific teams that are more efficient than others? Do you have specific task stacking that we can work through that will be more efficient?
And that's exactly what happened. Buildots acquired Genda, not because Buildots couldn't build a workforce tracking tool, but because what Genda had built, that adoption engine, those 3 years of figuring out how to get workers to actually use an app, you can't replicate that with a software development sprint.
Getting unbelievable amounts of workers on construction sites to want to use an app. Not just want to use an app, want to use an app knowing that that app collects location data. So it's anonymized, which obviously is, is very helpful for people. Otherwise, maybe it wouldn't work. But you know how people are, and most people have this thing of, do they allow Google or Apple or whatever in your phone? Yes, no, Facebook, the such. Understanding that they did that and that it works, you're like, well, so wow, that's big.
And here's the thing I think gets missed. Every other company in the reality capture space, and there is a shed ton of money in that space, literally hundreds of millions of funding into single companies, they're all competing on cameras. Better cameras, more cameras, drones, robots, AI analysis of images and whatnot. And that's fine. That's their strategy, and it's also important, but Buildots went sideways. They said, the camera tells us what got built, but it will never tell us who built it, how long it took, or why it is behind schedule. For that, we need the other side of the coin, And someone's already cracked the hardest part, getting workers to carry the sensor willingly. That's a bet on data, not hardware, and I think that's the more interesting play. So let's recap what happened here. A carpenter who spent years counting heads on job sites built an app that construction workers genuinely love using by solving their problems first and collecting data second. That data, combined with visual progress tracking, creates something that has never really existed in construction before: real productivity intelligence. Not are we on schedule, but why and what to do about it. And the whole thing started because one guy, Erez, looked at a tracking problem and asked a different question. Not how do I make them wear a sensor, but how do I make them want the sensor? That's the insight. Let's see how this pans out. I'll be very curious and excited to see this journey between Buildots and Genda. If you want to read more about Genda, Buildots, and the acquisition, I'll include some links in the description below. And if you found this interesting, please subscribe. We cover stories like this and more. And finally, if you want to go deeper, check out our newsletter, link in the description below. See you in the next one.